The Wave is a looping roller coaster at Drayton Manor. For many years, this ride operated as a stand-up coaster known as Shockwave, but underwent a huge transformation before the 2024 season. This gave the coaster sit-down trains, lowering the height requirement and changing the ride dynamics. I was expecting something on par with your average B&M looper, but this ride has way more character and some sneaky forces. I now think it's the most underrated coaster in the United Kingdom, and I will explain why in this review. In 1992, Drayton Manor signed a 2-ride contract with Intamin. This was a strategic addition that reshaped the park. In 1993, the park built the Splash Canyon River Rapids ride. 1 year later in 1994, the park built the Shockwave roller coaster atop Splash Canyon. This decision not only saved space, but it also allowed the two rides to share some concrete. 1994 was the year of the roller coaster in the United Kingdom. That was the year that Blackpool Pleasure Beach debuted the big one, which opened as the world's tallest roller coaster. Alton Towers also opened Nemesis, the first inverted coaster in all of Europe. Shockwave quite literally stood out from the pack. This opened as the first stand-up coaster in the United Kingdom. The only other stand-up coaster in Europe at the time was stand-up at Skara Summerland, which closed after the 1994 season, making Shockwave even more unique to the region. Shockwave remained the only stand-up coaster in Europe for the next 2 decades, as this model fell out of favor by the late 1990s. Many guests found them uncomfortable. Nonetheless, Shockwave remained Drayton Manor's signature coaster. It was sought after by coaster enthusiasts because it was the only ride of its kind to feature a zero-G roll. And if you visited the park for a special coaster enthusiast event, you did get the rare opportunity to ride this backwards. They didn't turn the train backwards, rather, you stood backwards, which looked pretty uncomfortable, and I suspect those seats smelled considering that's where people's sweaty heads usually rested. Flash forward to the 2020s. Drayton Manor is becoming more of a family park. They had removed a few high-thrill attractions such as G-Force in 2018, Pandemonium in 2021, and Apocalypse in 2022, but they faced a conundrum with Shockwave. This was their most popular coaster. However, not many kids could ride Shockwave due to its high 1.4 meter or 55-inch height requirement, but the park could not easily replace it. You see, when the town council approved plans for the coaster back in the 1990s, they misread the blueprints and didn't realize just how close the ride got to the park's boundaries, particularly the final turn. It is highly unlikely they would ever approve another coaster of that scale in that location. So the park instead drew inspiration from what a few other parks have done with their stand-up coasters. They transformed it into a sit-down coaster. Cedar Point did this in 2015, turning Mantis into Rougarou. California's Great America did this in 2017, turning Vortex into Patriot. Six Flags America did this in 2019, turning Apocalypse into Firebird. This significantly improved rider comfort. All 3 of these instances were with Balger and Mabillard coasters. Shockwave conveniently had the same box track as a B&M looper. While the coaster was built by Intamin, the track was subcontracted to Giovanola, who had previously employed Walter Balger and Claude Mabillard, hence why the track was identical. While it is likely that a B&M floorless train would have been compatible with Shockwave, those trains had the same 1.4 meter high height requirement as Shockwave, so it was not a fit for the park. Instead, Drayton Manor hired Art Engineering to construct a new sit-down train. This lowered the minimum height requirement down to 1.2 meters, or 47 inches. This allowed kids to ride the coaster 3 to 4 years sooner, which is a huge difference. So the coaster reopened in 2024 as the Wave. This was part of a rebrand of the entire area, which is now known as Adventure Cove. This is a colorful nautical-themed area, and this coaster fits right in. The re-theme included a billboard that the coaster pierces through near the station. Then the station retains the flamboyant multicolored paint scheme it got in 2021. It really stands out. The ride was given a light blue paint scheme back in 2004. While those colors certainly have faded, it's now more of a teal. It does work for the area. I am surprised I didn't give it a fresh coat of paint for the retheme though. You also get some wonderful views of the ride, especially because it interacts with the rapids in Midway. I also love the view as you look out over the ride from across the pond. It looks great on this park's skyline. I did not visit Drayton Manor until the 2024 season, but the refresh seemed popular with crowds. I've heard it has been one of the longer waits in the park most days. That was the case for my visit as well, and since I visited on a busy summer day, the wave sported a 45 to 60 minute wait for much of the day. Some tips about avoiding a long wait. 1. If you want to avoid a lengthy queue, it is prudent to head here early. The ride had a minimal wait during the first hour of operation. 2. Be leery about hopping in line right near park close. Drayton Manor is one of those parks that tends to close queues early. They didn't do it with Wave during my visit, but from what I heard, this was a mistake by the ride crew. Other rides in the park with long waits such as Gold Rush closed their queue well before close. They did let everyone in line for Wave ride, but the ride was cycling for at least an hour after park close. 3. Use Fast Pass. This paid skip the line system brings you directly to the station, often allowing you to board in less than 5 minutes. For 2024 at least, Wave is only included on the highest tier. I suspect it will be added to the lower tiers in the future seasons. If you use Fast Pass, it is worth noting most groups will be assigned the back row. If you are a solo rider such as myself, you will be placed with another group of 3. I preferred this coaster up front, specifically the front right seat. This seat had some odd forces on the corkscrews that you do not feel elsewhere in the train. Try to sit here if you have the opportunity. If you wait in the standby queue, there is a dedicated front row queue at least. One of the big reasons for Wave's queues is its capacity. This ride does not have the highest throughput. Shockwave originally had 2 trains, but it rarely ran both. In the ride's final few seasons, only one of those trains was available. It is also worth noting pieces of those trains can still be seen from Wave's station. Look out the left window as you head down the exit. There was hope that the Wave would return to multi-train operations, but it only received 1 sit-down train, and that one train holds just 24 riders, as there are 6 rows of 4. This also is not the fastest loader due to the restraints. These are nearly identical to the trains on Cannibal at Lagoon, Wicked at Lagoon, or Impulse at Knoebels. You have a large lap bar that rests flat against your thighs. This is comfortable and freeing for me. In theory, these should be easy to check, but the Wave has a much lower verify than the US rides I mentioned. These are some of the most unaccommodating restraints I have ever seen. Staff members need to make 2 passes to check restraints. First, they lower them normally. Then they make a second pass to staple a large chunk of guests. Not out of spite, but out of necessity. I often saw at least 1 guest per cycle not fit. Give credit to the employees though. They tried their hardest to get the restraints down as tight as possible. There was just not much they could do given how low that verify was. And it is worth noting that not all seats are equal. The back right specifically was brutal. I am 5'9" and 165-ish pounds, and I needed a hard push from the employees just to fit in that seat. I did not have that issue in any of the other rows I tried, so hopefully the park can look into this in the future, especially because that is the row where ride access and fast pass users are sent. I could see someone erroneously thinking they don't fit, when really it's just that one seat. And it makes me think if there are other seats like it on the ride as well. Once dispatched, you roll forwards. You have this long straightaway, because you're passing over the start of the River Rapids ride. Eventually, you have a tiny dip, and then you begin your climb up the 120-foot, or 37-meter tall lift hill. You get a nice view overlooking the park to your left. Wave then treats riders to an interesting drop that's 105 feet, or 32 meters tall, but really, it feels like two separate drops. You have a bank drop 90 degrees to the left. It levels off and continues turning left. Then it switches to a straight drop. The end result is an oddly profiled drop with a mix of forces, particularly in the back row. The first part offers some weak laterals in the back. The following turn offers solid Gs for all. Then the final part offers some faint airtime in the rear seats. Next is a vertical loop. This also offers a range of forces. Riders get OK Gs in the valleys. As you slow down at the apex, those up front are tilted forwards. Meanwhile, those in back get more traditional hang time over the top. Immediately afterwards, you have my favorite element by far, the 0G roll, although I don't think that's a fair name for this element. It is not 0G. This is sustained, inverted ejector airtime. It feels similar to the 0G roll on Kennywood's Skyrocket, just drawn out a bit more. You really get forced upwards. Then as a bonus, those in front also get some nice laterals simultaneously. It really feels like you'll be thrown out of the train. This is easily one of the world's best inversions, and I am really intrigued to know how it would have felt in those stand-up trains. Next is a long straightaway above the midway. You have decent speed at least, and you see an awesome head chopper approaching you. This is that aforementioned billboard. The train narrowly fits through it. The clearance envelope looks super tight, and I wonder if it's possible for someone taller to even hit that billboard, especially because the employees tell guests multiple times before departing that you must hold on at all times. You then have back-to-back corkscrews. I was expecting them to have solid snap, and they did that, especially in back, offering some decent laterals as well. But they really wowed me in the front right seats. There, riders are violently thrown forwards as they rotate 360 degrees. The ride forces you to bow. I was not expecting my body to be chucked in that way, but I loved it. It felt like I'd fold over. I did not get the sensation on the left side of the train though, and you also don't get that further back in the train. This is the main reason you want to sit up front on the right side if possible, for these two corkscrews. You then have a drawn-out rightward turn. It does not offer any forces. It is merely to get you back to the station. You then loudly brake and park in the station, ending the 1,640-foot or 500-meter-long coaster. This ride is definitely on the shorter side, but it's mostly action-packed start to finish, and I came off with a big smile on my face. I was really intrigued to see how smoothly this coaster would ride. I had heard Shockwave was a bit rough, especially further back in the train. I had loved these art engineering trains elsewhere, but those were radically different rides from different manufacturers, and those were designed for the art trains from the start. While I am pleased to say that these trains work very well on Wave, the coaster is smooth on all rows. That is quite the accomplishment when you're retrofitting a train to someone else's ride that is 30 years old. Now, I never rode Shockwave, but I wonder if part of the problem were those forces that tried to throw you sideways and forwards. I can see how that would have been really uncomfortable in the stand-up position, especially with over-the-shoulder restraints. But with the Wave's open restraints, I welcome how this coaster throws me about. You are free to enjoy the coaster without worry of bashing your head, hitting your groin, or losing feeling in your legs. 3 issues that are common with most stand-up coasters if you have the wrong position. So, what would I rate the Wave? I would give this coaster an 8 out of 10. This was probably the most underrated coaster of my summer UK road trip. I was expecting a decent looper at best, on par with your average B&M floorless coaster. But this was way better than most B&M loopers. It feels more unrefined in a good way. The ride has some really interesting forces that really shine with those new trains. I loved all 4 inversions, particularly that wild ejector airtime 0G roll and those 2 corkscrews at the end. The ride is definitely on the shorter side, and you have to be in the front right seat to maximize your experience, but it is a really good ride in that spot. It is still a good ride in the other seats, but doesn't quite have the same edge. I still wish I got a chance to ride Shockwave before it was converted, especially because that zero-G roll was a unique element on the genre. But I ultimately am glad that Drayton Manor did this. They found a way to breathe new life into an aging Intamin creation. It is now more accommodating, well, from a minimum height perspective at least. And it's a ride well worth checking out because there is not another coaster out there that feels quite like it. So those are my thoughts on the Wave at Drayton Manor. What are your thoughts on this coaster, especially if you previously rode Shockwave? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I would appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you consider subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.